Okay, everyone, welcome to Black Men Speak. I'm your co-host, J.R. Stewart.
And I am your co host, Tommy Duncan. It is Wednesday night, April the 27th, 2022. And it's Wednesday night, Jimmy.
So that means it's Black Men Speak, the most progressive talk show on the internet dealing with black issues. And like Keisha Jones says, we are not for play. So, Tom, what's our topic tonight?
Oh, man, Jimmy, we have an interesting show tonight. We are changing our format a little bit, Jimmy. And actually, we are on a new platform, which I'm
Yes, we have a
very
new
in.
virtual studio.
Absolutely. So I'm very excited to see what that may bring us in the near future, and more importantly, how that might serve our listeners, and our customers. And Jimmy, I was having a conversation with someone recently, a good friend of mine who was a teacher, and she brought back many conversations that I've had over the last several months, quite frankly, over the last several years. And it comes to education, one of the top three things that we talk about on our show: education
Yes.
and the importance of it. And one of the things that she was saying is how many teachers were either considering or leaving the profession earlier for a variety of different reasons. And so, what we're going to do tonight is we're going to talk briefly about this. I just read an article that really concerns me recently, and we are going to ask our listeners to call in and provide their thoughts and their observations as to what's going on in education, what's going on with our teachers in particular, and what we can potentially do about it. So, folks, before we even get started, this is a call in focus show. We'd like you to dial in at 972 497 2280 and give us your thoughts. It's also posted at the very bottom of our show here. But call in,
Yes.
give us your thoughts about what is it that you're seeing in our schools, because this is very concerning. And this is the article that I read a little bit earlier today, Jimmy, and this was from the National Education Association, one of the, if not the largest national association of educators. It says a staggering 55% of educators are thinking about leaving the profession earlier than they had planned. And this came out from a survey in February of this year. The National Education Association, a staggering 55%, one out of every two educators is seriously thinking about leaving the profession earlier, a significant increase from 37%, almost 40% in August of last year. And this is regardless of age, years in teaching, driving buses, serving meals to students. And this is the kicker, Jimmy. It said that 62%. Now, we'll say that first and foremost, African American and Latin American teachers are already underrepresented. But the
Yes.
same survey said that 62% of African American and 59% of Latin American educators. Overall, it was 55%, but 62% of African American and 59% of Latin American educators were thinking about leaving. And 86% of NEA members said they have seen more educators leaving the profession and retiring earlier. This has been exacerbated by what has happened during the pandemic. And we have talked about, what's been going on since the pandemic on one of our shows just here recently. But Jimmy, this is major stuff, has a huge impact on young people, has a huge impact on our future. Jimmy, we've already talked about the inability of our homegrown talent to be able to address the needs of this country when it comes to specific fields, not just STEM, but especially STEM. All right, Jimmy, it looks like we already have a caller coming in.
Okay.
Wait a second.
What say you, caller?
Okay. Good evening, Black Men Speak, and welcome to our show tonight. If you would, tell us your name, where you're from, and what your thoughts or questions are. Can you hear me? If you can hear me, I cannot hear you. Okay, caller, if you can hear me, I cannot hear you.
You have them on mute or you have a caller on
Okay.
speaker?
All right. Looks like they may not be able to get through. So we're going to give them a second. Hopefully, they'll be able to call back and give them just a second here. and maybe they'll call back.
Okay.
All right. But
But Tom,
anyway,
the stats that you provided are not surprising, although I wasn't familiar. I didn't realize the number was that high. But
okay, it looks like we may have the caller calling back in.
let's hope we have better results this time.
Good evening and welcome to Black Men Speak. This is Tommy Duncan. If you could tell us your name, where you are from, and what your thoughts or questions are.
My name is Ricardo Greer.
How you doing, Brother Graham?
I'm doing well, Brother Duncan. How are you, sir?
I am doing outstanding. It is good to hear from you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm calling from the Cincinnati area from a community called Westchester, Ohio.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So
Ohio
we
in the house.
and I know Brother Gray, a longtime friend. We have known each other for a very long time, and a very, very accomplished teacher, has taught in public schools, taught in private schools. I'll let him talk a little bit more about himself. But man, give us your thoughts on this topic, because I was stunned when I saw this article today.
Well, it's multi-layered. So just the question on the floor is, why are many teachers leaving in droves? And it off the top of my head, I can think of one of the reasons why I got into the profession was it was respected. It was considered a noble profession. It helped me when I was raising my young children. It afforded me the opportunity to not only contribute in a meaningful way to my community, but also afforded me the opportunity to spend quality time with my children in a profession that was supposed to be about children. And it has been recently, in the past several years, becoming vilified. Teachers a lot of the blames of the ills of society are being laid at the feet of teachers, and there's just a lot of contradictory information that we're getting about how we value teachers, how important teachers are to our society. Yet, whenever there are cuts to state budgets, the first thing to go is something that relates to education. So, the scripture says that you value where you will put your treasure where your money is, or you put your treasure where your values are. Then we see clearly that we don't value education, neither do we value teachers. Considering not only our compensation with regard to our education, we are among the lowest compensated for our profession, or in the professional world. It's also becoming increasingly more challenging. Not only are students coming to school less prepared, but there are also families who are charging teachers with rearing their children.
Interesting.
And that becomes very, very, very disheartening.
You know, you bring up a couple of very poignant observations there. And tell us a little bit about, your background. You've taught in public, you've taught in private. Tell us a little bit about that and kind of what you've seen over the years during your career.
Well, I've taught in New Orleans public schools and now in the Cincinnati suburban public schools in a district called Mason. I've also taught in private all-boys Catholic schools. I've taught in schools for at-risk African-American males down in New Orleans. I have taught in independent schools and at a local private school here in the Cincinnati area. And so I've been teaching now for 20-something years. That time has flown by. So my undergraduate is in history with a degree from the University of New Orleans, history degree, and my master's is from Xavier, Louisiana, with a degree in curriculum and instruction, as well as what's called a plus 30, which is at least 30 hours of postgraduate work in the field of education. So those are my academic credentials. I also run a nonprofit where I got the opportunity to help create a school, if you will, for middle school students in the Cincinnati area that was being taught by high school and college age students for an academic summer program that prepared them for academically challenging and rigorous high schools in our area.
So Tom, ask him where did he teach in New Orleans?
My academic background.
New Orleans. He taught at New Orleans public schools.
Right, which school?
Yes, sir.
The question Jimmy asked, what school did you teach at in New Orleans?
Okay, I taught at McMain high school, Eleanor McMain
Okay, that's a
Secondary High
magnet
School.
school.
I
Yeah.
also got the opportunity to teach at Bishop Perry Middle School and James Lewis Extension, which is
Okay.
a charter school in New Orleans.
Gotcha.
And Bishop Perry Middle School was a school for at-risk African-American males who were at risk due to poverty.
Gotcha.
Yeah, tell me, he's a fellow privateer, and I spent a year at
Are
Warren
there any
Easton
other questions?
High School.
Gotcha. Okay. So let me ask you this. And I think this has been coming for a long time. I remember myself talking to some of my old high school teachers when I would go back to visit my high school in Dallas. And I remember, one of the lasting impressions that I got is that school just wasn't the same as it used to be. They didn't feel that they got the support. I remember my father, by the way, is a career teacher. And, being African-American, there were only a few things that a black professional could do. And one of the things he used to always say, when I got out of college, I could either preach and I could teach. And I decided to teach. And at that time, being a teacher was one of the highest paying professions for African-Americans. Obviously, a lot has changed during that period of time. But getting to the point, you mentioned allocations that contribute towards teacher pay. It's very, very obvious and in the news that the support for teachers has waned. And in a lot of cases, I hear that, the teachers, the students have more power in the classroom than the teachers. Can you speak to that?
Yes, seems like education has gone from a profession where we educated youth for tomorrow to being a service-oriented industry. So our students and their families are consumers of a product. So there's a business model that's being applied to education. So there was a time when I was in school and when I started teaching, if a child was not really productive, we began to look at where he or she was putting their talent or their effort or their interest with regard to homework, the quality of the work that was being done. And if they weren't doing the work, then the question came to the student about why they weren't doing the work. Now it becomes, my child is not entertained in your class, they're bored in your class. What are you going to do to entertain my child? It's not about education. It's about entertainment and competing with phones or with social media in the classroom environment. When we call parents to try to get the support, a lot of the parents are saying things like, "It's for you to figure out. That's for you to work to help my child. That's why I send them to school." So it seems like there's even the partnership that exists between the home and the school is fractured, and teachers are just exhausted with being blamed for students' lack of initiative, students' lack of efforts, and sometimes the parents abdicating their responsibility as parents and partnering with the school.
Gotcha. Any closing thoughts? And I appreciate your feedback. This is extremely valuable, and we're going to continue the conversation. Any closing thoughts? And we're hoping that we'll have a couple of other folks to call in as well.
Well, hope does bring eternal. One of the reasons I got into this profession is once I got to college, my mind opened up to so many ideas, and I was kind of disheartened that I could not, or that I had not experienced any of those in my formative years. And so I decided I want to go back and reach those and teach those so that they could make it to the university level and be exposed. And this is becoming harder and harder because the system is telling us that even though we're trained professionals, the system tells us that they don't trust us because they're trying to micromanage what comes into the classroom in terms of textual information, in terms of teaching children history. The history and other subjects are being not just watered down, but really, really whitewashed, so that I can't even teach the history that is in the textbook without a parent having some type of challenge or issue. So I think as far as closing, if you're going to train the professional, you need to trust the professional. No one out there is going to tell their physician exactly how the physician should treat them and second guess the physician's medical training. But they will do that for teachers, and that is a service to the profession.
Gotcha.
And it's quite heartening.
And finally, what is it from a teacher's point of view that you can see? What leverage do the teachers' unions and or organizations committed to the teaching profession, what leverage do they have in terms of affecting positive change so that they can have the type of environment that will produce the best from our students? Yes,
the teachers' unions are the problem.
I
They're
understand.
creating the situation.
Wait a sec. Let me get his perspective on this, and then we can continue the conversation. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Brother Greg.
At times, I'm not honestly, Brother Duncan. I'm not quite sure because unions are being used as a dirty word, and in this profession, and a lot of the families out there believe that the unions are just a way for teachers to get more money, as opposed to the teachers working for better conditions to provide an excellent education for their children. But I would believe that, or I want to believe that the unions have the ability to leverage change by getting more members active into the unions and making real world demands from the school board to allow us to do the things that we've been trained to do. And I hate to use that a word such as strike or anything like that, because it adversely impacts the learning environment for the student. But there is a culture that's permeating the United States right now that is vilifying public education and is systematically dismantling it, and it's coming from elected officials. And so maybe by leveraging our resources at the state level, we can affect some positive change.
Gotcha. Well, thank you very much, Brother Gray. We appreciate your insight. We appreciate you calling in, and we look forward to hopefully talking with you very soon.
Thank you very much, Brother Duncan. I appreciate your time.
Okay,
yes, thank you very much.
All right, Jimmy. Sorry about that.
No
Folks,
problem.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Jimmy.
What I was going to say was I appreciate the brother calling in and giving us his view, and I feel for him because my mother was a teacher also, and my sister-in-law is a teacher, a counselor, and I know a couple of consultants who were former teachers who are now doing the consulting in education. And so what the brother feels is real. He just hadn't quite connected all the dots. The very same teachers union that he thinks is fighting for him really is a slush fund. The union fights for more money for the teachers, which increase their union dues. The union dues go to politicians who support the destruction, not the advancement of education, but they support the destruction of education, which is why they put so many rules in to make it so cumbersome for these teachers to do their jobs. So this is not by accident. This is by design, and the union are the very ones who support the politicians who create the environment where it's difficult for teachers to do their job. So this is a vicious cycle. So getting rid of the influence of the union and who they support, and take your union dues and contribute to campaigns. Basically, if they would stop supporting people who don't support quality education for kids, things would change. But they don't.
Well, that means to me, or if I'm reading it correctly, either obviously change in leadership or actually reform of the structure itself. If you're talking, because at some point in time, all teachers have a responsibility to the highest education, of the constituents that they serve. They
go into the profession with that desire. Yes,
exactly.
They're very noble people. They give of themselves. But look at, if you do a comparison between the public schools, private schools, and charter schools, you probably don't see such an exodus with the charter and private schools. Why? Because there's less bureaucracy hanging over their head. Fewer rules. The teachers have more autonomy in the classroom. Public school teachers have no autonomy. They can't pick the school books. They have to get their lesson plans approved. All this is pushed down from the top, and these people who make the rules about what's being taught haven't even been in the classroom. They don't know what these kids need or what's the best way to get to them. The teacher in the classroom is a foot soldier who's on the ground, who's there, who knows best how to reach each and one of
Correct.
his students. But
Correct.
that is the person who has the least amount of power. The person back in the Capitol, back in the TEA or whatever teachers organization, administration within your state that dictate the rules. Those are the people that are telling you how to teach in your classroom, and they're not in your classroom, nor have they ever been in a classroom. So they can't. They're not even talking from experience, Tom. They're talking from
Understand.
theory and textbook. And
Mhm.
so, this is just one big conspiracy to keep our kids dumb because an illiterate, dumb society is easy to control because
Well,
now you're just operating off emotion rather than intellect.
got it, get it. And then therein begs the question, okay, if you have a society of people, and let's kind of narrow this down to our community, because you spoke to public schools versus private schools versus charter schools, and the ability to get things done, to be able to exact change in an appropriate way, so that our students can have a better life. And then when you look at it, let's be very clear, the majority of Black and brown students, African American and Latin American students, are in public schools. And
Yes.
so the question then becomes, what is it as parents? What is it as concerned citizens? What is it as one generation of people looking to pass the baton or light the torch to the next generation who are concerned about our future, about our country, about our communities? We have to have the discussion. What is it that we need to understand, and what is it that we need to do to ensure that we don't continue to crater?
Well, Tom, a lot of these superintendents have huge salaries. The assistant superintendents have huge salaries. And for the life of me, I'm not sure what these people do to earn their money. But I would say, as a parent, if your child is in public school, you should demand that that school provide an excellent quality education for your child. Do not let them pass your child through the system and your child come out with a piece of paper that means nothing. Barely can read, can't do math. Um, I believe I read somewhere that the average black male child in California is 4 grade levels behind um, his white counterpart. And if he's 4 levels behind his white counterpart, I can only imagine how far he is behind the Asian counterpart. So, Tom, if you're not going to demand people do their job and educate your child, then you're doing a disservice to your child. So don't let your school board go out and hire a superintendent, pay them $300,000-$400,000, and your child's not being educated properly. You should be down there at the PTA meeting and the school board meetings every time they meet, pushing your complaint and demanding that they hire teachers, change the system, give teachers more autonomy. Somebody has to be held accountable. It's like right now, Tom, who's accountable? So if you
Right.
say my child can't read, the teacher's going to say, well, it's not my fault. It's the school board. You go to the school board, they're going to say, hey, it's not my fault. I'm not in the classroom. It's the teacher's fault. Or somebody's going to put the finger at the principal or the vice principal or the counselor. Everybody has an out. Everybody has an excuse. And in the meanwhile, your child is coming out of school dysfunctional.
I
So,
understand. And folks, for those of you who'd like to weigh in as a parent, as a student, as an administrator, or even as a concerned citizen, feel free to call in 972-497-2280. Again, 972-497-2280. Let us know what your thoughts are. Let us know what your experiences are. Let us know what your solutions are or recommendations are. And getting back to the main question, usually when it comes right down to this, Jimmy, it comes down to money and
it
or it
does.
comes down to leverage. And leverage typically comes in volumes of people who can make an impact. Maybe they don't have billions of dollars, but they can vote people in, they can vote people out, and or they can leverage what they have in order to make a change. And so you spoke to school districts, and we can talk specifically, for instance, to a Dallas Independent or about Dallas Public Schools. It was Dallas Independent School District when I was being taught, when I was in the public school system in the city of Dallas. Now, you're right. I mean, we have administrators who make tons of money, and I don't recall, I don't know if Hinojosa is still the superintendent for the ISD. I know a while ago he was. But if we look at this and we have concerned parents who don't have the options to just move from place, maybe they can't move at will to a better school district, or maybe they don't have the funds to take their children to a private school. And maybe as an individual, they feel that they are a little bit defenseless in terms of how they demand. When you talk about demand better environment, demand better schools. And now we're talking about, Jimmy, severe staff shortages in our teaching profession. We're talking about a mass exodus. When 1 out of every 2 teachers is talking about getting out of the profession early, that isn't a warning sign. That is a that is a fire engine.
Tom, why should they stay?
I understand. There are 2 things.
Okay,
Go ahead.
go ahead. I was going to say, why should a teacher stay when they're not getting the support from the system?
Mhm.
You know, you're in a classroom, you have 20, 30 students. 3 or 4 of them are not quite doing the work that they should, up to the level to pass them to the next grade.
Mhm.
You decide to fail them. Okay, but you have a 2 failure limit in your classroom, not by you, imposed on you by the system. You fail 2 students, you may not get your contract renewed. So what's the message? The message is, for me to get my contract renewed and get a bonus, I need to pass everybody in this classroom, whether they're capable of doing the work or not. Because it's not about educating them now. It's about me paying my bills. It's about me being able to put food on the table for my family. You know, if I do the right thing, I lose my job. I do the wrong thing, I get incentivized and I get paid. So the incentive is for you to do the wrong thing. And after a while, you came into this profession with honorable intentions, but you're not able to do and exercise that and carry that out. You came into this profession to educate kids, very noble desire, and then you get into the system, and the system is telling you that no, it's not about education, it's about money. You need to make sure everyone passes. Texas, I remember when Rick Perry ran for president, and he bragged on the success rate of Texas in passing brown and black kids. Okay, I'm thinking, okay, this is a good thing. 75, 80% of minority kids are graduating high school. Until I found out that a passing grade in Texas is now 50. You can guess your way to a 50 without even studying. If you can't you can't guess your way to pass a test with a 50, then you don't need to be in school. I remember a time when I was in school, one of the schools I went to, it was A, B, or C. There was no D, and if you got anything
Correct.
less than a C, it was an
Correct.
F. You had to
Correct.
repeat the
Same here.
class.
Same here. Same
Thank
here.
you. And now, the you can pass with a 51. So they watered the curriculum down. They watered the requirements down to make it so easy. If you can't graduate high school today, then you're an absolute dunce. I'm sorry, and maybe you shouldn't even be in school.
All right. It looks like we may have another caller. Jimmy, give me just a second.
Go ahead.
Black Men Speak. This is Tommy Duncan. Welcome. If you could give us your name, where you are from, and what your thoughts are or questions.
Hi, my name is Sharif Bug. How are you? I'm calling from Patterson, New Jersey.
How are you,
Oh
Sharif?
wow, New Jersey.
I'm doing good. I was just listening to the conversation. Very good conversation, one. But I also like to add to the comment on the brother was saying pertaining to the structure of how the union work and the teachers work in terms of political commitment made to one another in terms of moving, in terms of controlling the narrative. I do work for the public school system myself as a teacher as one. But I think also the piece that we're missing in the urban community is that a lot of those money that we talk about moves through a lot of the religion community, churches and organizations that kind of control or oppress the voting power that our people have.
Okay.
I really like us to have that more conversation. The politician system itself, it is what it is, and it always been before you and I were born. It wasn't set for us, and we can't really fight how the political system really work in a sense of because it's too much back against us. But what we can control is how they move within our own community.
Yes.
And the money that comes to our community from these political establishments that control our churches, our local organizations, and they oppress the voice of those people to speak for people like us. And what happened is that people don't vote. People get lopsided on what the issue are really before us. So this what happened is that they speak for us and they're not really speaking for us.
That's true.
You know,
Speak
and I
on,
hope
brother.
that those that listening, that we have to also address those issues on a local level before we start really addressing those big ones. Those churches have to really close their door and stop letting those politicians coming in and control the narrative. Those local organizations have to stop letting these politicians coming in control the narrative by giving them crumb money to get us to vote the way they want us to vote, and it's not working for our back.
So can you give us, and I appreciate your feedback, and you said you were from Patterson, New Jersey. Was it Shay? What was your name again, brother?
Sharif.
Okay, sorry about that, Sharice. So give us some specific examples, and I am with you 110% in terms of accountability through our churches and through some of our so-called traditional organizations that represent someone's interests, maybe not always the community interest. Give us some specific things that you might recommend that parents or everyday citizens who have a concerned interest, when you look at money being funneled through churches, civic organizations, or other organizations, as to how we can better channel that to benefit our communities by benefiting our students through the election of folks who are in political seats to be accountable.
Well, I'll speak from my community, which has often have been the trend in my community, that where there's a certain amount of churches, there's a certain amount of organizations, there's a certain amount of groups that are in that inner circle. How can I say that? Inner circle club that benefit from resources and grants and all that stuff to do what they do within their church, do within their community or organization, and they push the narrative to get to encourage us to vote for a certain kind of slate, and that slate does not have, like the brother said, the slate does not have no connection to us. They're not even addressing some of the issues that are concerned that we put forth. So we'll have a superintendent, we'll have a mayor, we'll have a city council that's being put there actually to speak with board, and they're not really representing us. So they are powerful. They are powerful entity, and they don't see how much power they have. And it's just been and you and I know, we all on this platform know, the church speak high value of how we move in our community. They speak very high value of how we operate in the community, because a lot of people depend on the church. They listen to the church. So if I am a politician from a higher level and I want that control, that narrative, all I got to do is just buy into the church to get them to buy into my vision and keep pouring into supporting their resources. And guess what? Most 9 out of 10, the pastor's going to stand up in the pulpit and he's going to encourage and introduce that leader to get the support of the congregation. And what happened, the congregation doesn't question that, because they believe in that pastor. They believe in that imam. They believe in that leader of that religious group. And what happened is they don't even question the platform. They don't even look at the platform. They don't even read between the line, like, who is this guy that they project for me? They just believe that voice who I've been listening to for all these years and trusted, and they just go ahead and vote for them. We have to change the narrative of that. That's true.
I appreciate that, Brother Sharice. Any closing comments? And we certainly appreciate you calling in. Any closing comments?
No, I just I encourage you guys to keep this conversation going. It is a conversation that we need to have daily, especially with our men. If our men can really get on this conversation, we can kind of change the platform in terms of how we vote, how our household set, because men speak value. Men speak value. And as I work in the classroom, man, when I say I got to call your father, it's a whole different change.
Now you said you are an educator, correct? So you are in the classroom, right?
Yes.
Now,
Yes, I'm in the classroom.
we had and I want to get your opinion on this. We had a brother and a sister on our show a week or so ago, and the brother, Jimmy knows him, his brother Terrence. He
Yes.
said he had been in the teaching profession for 4 years, and he was a teacher and he was a coach. And in that 4 years, he said that he
And
had
coaching multiple teams. Don't forget
yes,
that.
exactly.
Soccer and what, football.
Right. And I hope your experience is different. But one of the things that we were focusing on was the impact of fathers in the household, and that also influenced the education process. But one of the things that he had mentioned is that in his 4 years of being in education, he had interacted with maybe three
Three
fathers.
dads. Yes.
3 fathers. And that was in sports and about the same in the classroom environment. What is your experience like? Because you bring up a very interesting point about the impact and the influence of fathers. What have you experienced in terms of fathers being involved in the education process? Typically, they're more involved with sports. What is your experience been? Have you connected with very many fathers during your teaching career?
My situation might be a little different, but I do support that I know that he just said. I do believe that it's common. And why I said mine's a little different is because not only just I'm in a classroom, but I am a community active. I'm in the community doing things, so I get to engage with some of the fathers at a different level. But in terms of education, he is correct.
Just in the classroom.
Just in the classroom, the men itself are not engaged in the classroom. Mostly are the women. I wouldn't even say the mothers. To be honest with you, it's the grandmother.
Yeah, big mama.
It's the grandmothers and the aunties and all that stuff who I have more interaction with. The mothers are there, but in our city, there's a lot going on in terms of trying to keep a roof over their heads, and all of the parents are working not more than just one job. So it's a combination of family working together to support these children. But I will say that I have less interaction with men dealing with education. But you're incorrect that when I on a Saturday morning in our city, when these kids play basketball, the gym is filled with men. It is filled with men. And I'm not talking about high school basketball. I'm talking about Pee Wee basketball, Little League basketball. The gym is filled from the top to the bottom. Now, a PCA meeting, a back to school night, or any kind of conference with a parent for education, it's always a female.
Gotcha. And finally, we'll go ahead and let you get back to what you were doing, but targeted back towards the topic. The focus of the show was this mass exodus of teachers from the profession, contributed by several factors: exhaustion, frustration, pay, etc. In your environment, in your school district, are you seeing the same thing? And what are your thoughts on that? And do you see any hope? Any thoughts on that?
I see a combination of those things that you just listed as well, but I also see a combination for especially men withdrawing from the educational field is because of we're being more utilized as the disciplinary factor. We're becoming the referee, okay, and that's become overwhelming because trying to be their disciplinarian, trying to be, in the sense, their father figure, especially trying to be their mentor and all that, and a list of other things too. But to try to provide that educational piece to it, it becomes a challenge, and I see a lot of men refrain from going in the field or continue in that field because of that. It's overwhelming.
Gotcha.
It's overwhelming.
Gotcha.
So the key factor of a principal, and this is just my observation. I have no proof of it, no solid data behind it.
Mm.
But I believe that the personal goal of principals nowadays is not so much of educating the children, but making sure that each classroom is controlled, maintained, and there's no interruption on it. Whether they learn or not, I just don't want to be said that I can't control my school.
Gotcha.
I don't want to be said that the Board of Education look at me not able to manage my building. So I'm going to do all I can do to make sure that it's controlled, that each classroom is controlled. Not that they're educated, not that they're learning the skills that they need to survive. Yes, they care about that. Yes, that they're part of their passion. But the main structure is that I can lose my job, my longevity, my connection because I can't control my school. So what we do is we utilize strong men to control the school to make sure that they have a good image. You see what I'm saying?
Gotcha. An enforcer.
That's been the structure, and I see that not just in my city. I've seen that in other cities as I travel out through the state and urban communities. That has been the main job of the main image of a black person, black male being in the classroom, to being a disciplinary and the enforcer.
Gotcha. All right, Brother Sharice, we appreciate you calling in. We appreciate your insight, brother, and we look forward to having you back soon.
Thank you. Take care.
Goodbye.
Thank you. So, Tom, what the brother shared with us is that people don't realize how much money flows to those school boards, hundreds of millions of dollars. And just imagine if you have the contract for paper or toilet paper or supplies, that's worth millions. And so this is what the school board's about. These people are elected to keep those contracts flowing to the people who receive the money. They're not there to educate kids. They're there to keep the money flowing. So what the brother is alluding to is that teachers realize that they're not being supported by the system. That, yeah, education, like you said, the goal is not educating kids. The goal is other things. And so smart teachers figure this out, and then they get burned out on the whole system, on the whole process. So one of the things that we can do, Tom, is some real black men need to start getting on that school board and help changing things from the inside.
What does that look like then?
That means stop letting that preacher man pick your school board, candidates. Stop letting other people influence who sits on that board, who elects your superintendent, and who spends your money. Get some real parents, from the streets, from the neighborhood, to run. I know it's a volunteer job; it doesn't pay anything, but you're in control of a great deal of money that flows to the school board. Dallas has a $600 million budget for that school board. 9 members spend $600 million every year. So you don't think it's worth some to the people who receive a lot of that money to help elect a school board that's friendly to them because they want to continue continue to see the money flow.
Okay, looks like we have another caller coming in, Jimmy.
Yay!
It's rolling.
Who we got tonight?
Okay, wait just a second.
Volume. We can't hear it.
Okay. Welcome to Black Men Speak. If you could tell us who you are, where you're from, and what your thoughts or questions are tonight.
Hello, how you doing? This is Felicia.
Hey, Felicia, how are you?
Hey, how you doing?
Good. Thank you so much for calling in tonight. So, tell us about what you got to say.
I'm in Red Oak, and I've taught in several school districts, public schools, as well as ISDs, brother.
Okay.
And charter schools. Let me turn this down because I'm hearing myself.
Okay.
Yes, mute to your computer.
Yeah, turn it on mute. There we go.
Yeah. Okay.
Go ahead.
What did you say, Tommy?
Go ahead. Now that you have it on mute, tell us a little bit about what your thoughts are, because this is very scary when you look at so many teachers who are looking at leaving the profession early, the impact that potentially has on our students, on our community. What have you seen? What are your thoughts on it? And what are some potential solutions?
Okay, one of the things that I do see, I'm a member of the teachers' website on Facebook, and a lot of teachers make comments on there about the stress that they're under in school. You have a lot of senior teachers that are being encouraged to either resign or they're trying to terminate them for one reason or another. And we need all kinds. We need the new teachers coming in with the new technology. We need the old teachers to teach the new teachers the knowledge that they have and they've acquired over the years on what better approaches to a tape. What I find that every year, most districts start a whole new curriculum.
Yeah.
And they just abandon the curriculum they had the previous year. Everything is constantly changing, and I haven't figured out, being in education for 15 years, why haven't we mastered this as of yet? I've also worked in charter schools. I think parents are impressed with charter schools, but charter schools, it's a business. It's not about the students, it's a business. Everything is about a business. If you walk into a charter school, most charter schools don't even have a library. Nobody even questions, why don't you have a library? That's important and that's crucial. Most of their special ed programs are not effective or efficient enough to educate the students. Generally, they will put a mass number of students, all grade levels, in one classroom and accommodate those kids. And I know as a special ed teacher, that is not truly accommodating those kids. But like I said, it's a business. Most of these charter schools, it's a business. They sell you on other concepts. We don't teach your child a foreign language. We don't teach your child this, coding or whatever. But what are they actually getting from the academic standpoint? Then I would like to say, when I talk to most teachers, and even in my own opinion, from my own experience, with this COVID situation where the kids have been out of school for in excess of almost 2 years, I find that there's a lot of immaturity. There's social and emotional things that should have been developed over those 2-year period of time. When you have a kid stationary, sitting at home with too much freedom, there's lack of academic growth. And that's in all areas. And I'm talking about nationwide. I have stressed this enough that students need to have started fresh and been retained at least 1 year to catch up and to close that gap. Because now we have kids that are going to graduate and they have a 2-year gap in their education, academically as well as social and emotional development. Their cognitive development is not as strong. So I'm finding a lot of teachers are experiencing this just by basics of what they're teaching and how well the child is grasping what they've learned or what they should know at this point. So you have kids that are in the 5th grade, they're actually behaving maturity level of a 3rd grader and academic level of a 3rd grader. That means their reading skills is weak, their math skills are weak. These are things that are very concerning. And I heard your other person that was speaking earlier about the importance of having men in the schools. When you don't have a man present in the home, you don't even have one when you think of generational. Who do I go to that I can look up to? Both girls and boys look up to men.
Right.
Gotcha.
Most of the school is filled with women. And I've always said we need to have at least one man on every hallway. Because if you have a janitor, if you have a custodian, if you have the gym teacher, the kids reach out to those men all the time. So imagine if we had 10 men in the schools. Average school may have 40 teachers. If you got 10 of those teachers are men, you're going to find those kids, even as a female teacher, sometimes I used to say, okay, I'm going to go tell Coach so-and-so. Immediately that kid checks himself.
Gotcha.
So I say it's very important to have men within the school as well. And I'll even talk to some principals. Please hire us some more men. Well, I haven't found any that are really, what do they say? Academically, or either, what is the word that they use? I haven't found a male teacher that can
certified.
Do what I need them to do.
Gotcha. Certification.
Academically,
Good
they
deal.
need to cover. And there's social studies, there's math, there's science. And I don't believe that to be true.
It's not.
But even in the elementary schools, a lot of men don't want to teach in elementary schools, but we need that foundational, we need that male image even in elementary
Probably
schools.
more so in elementary schools than any other. Gotcha. Any closing words? Any closing words? Because I know we have a couple of folks who are trying to call in. Any closing thoughts?
Oh, okay. I just think that basically we really need the parent support. I need the parents to come in and a tutorial. We need you to tutor your children at home. All of those factors would help. And when we talk about discipline, don't be afraid to listen to the teacher and accept what the teacher is saying. It's better to accept the teacher now than to stand before the judge later and let him hit his gavel and declare your child 5 to 10 years gone away from you. Let's check them now. Get them under control now. Get them to listening to you and respecting you as well as a person of authority. You won't have those problems later in life.
All right. Thank you so much, Miss. Thank you so much, Miss.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Very good comments, Tom.
I'll be listening.
Goodbye.
Yeah, very good comments.
We have had some awesome callers in today.
Yes, we have. I'm impressed.
Yeah, and Miss, and you talked about this earlier, and Brother Sharice talked about this a little bit earlier today, being very intentional about the leadership. All right, we have another call in coming in now.
Okay.
Good evening. Welcome to Black Men Speak. This is Tommy Duncan. If you could tell us who you are, where you're from, and what your thoughts are on tonight's topic.
Okay, hello. My name is Cassidy Christian, and I am in the Dallas area. Okay, can y'all hear me? Okay.
Yes, ma'am. We can hear you. We can hear you great.
Okay. So I am a teacher in Dallas, and I actually posed the question to one of my colleagues today, which is a male teacher, and I just basically said, why are so many teachers leaving, just from your perspective and from other people that you talk to? And his response was that basically a lot of teachers, once they get into the classroom, they don't understand how many hats you have to wear. And the salary really isn't comparable to all the things that we have to do as teachers in the classroom. We're not only there to cover a lesson plan. We have to deal with emotional issues. We have to deal with behavioral issues. We have to deal with keeping these students basically, from getting in trouble criminally. We have so many things that we have to do in that room with so many different kids and so many different personalities. And a lot of people, when they come into the classroom, they're like, no, this isn't for me. And they leave. And they find jobs that pay way more, where they're able to not have to deal with all those things.
Gotcha. So otherwise, not really knowing all the hats they're going to have to wear, not just being an educator, in some cases, and this was spoken to earlier, being a co-parent, and we're doing all of these things that are well beyond the scope. And it's not that teachers don't have a passion, because we have probably millions of teachers who have a passion and a love for what they do.
Very passionate about what they do.
But when you consider that they too have families, they too have responsibilities, they too have lives, they just get burnt out because of what they're being asked to do. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, correct. I also have a good friend of mine, and she was saying that she was speaking to another teacher that has middle school age children, and she teaches middle school. And she said that she is so tired when she gets home that when she has to return back to work, she is at a point to where she has thoughts of harming those kids. And that's real talk. That's a teacher actually said that, because she is so stressed out from what she has to deal with. Because kids, they push buttons. Now, I'm not at that point because I don't have kids of my own, so I'm good. But that's the point my friend made. She was like, but you don't have to go home and deal with it.
Gotcha. Any thoughts? Any thoughts from a teacher's perspective? I know that you said you weren't a parent, but from a teacher's perspective, because ultimately, when we look at it, who's losing are our students. And quite frankly, when we look at the next generation coming down the pipe, what is that going to look like? Any thoughts, any solutions, any recommendations? And I know that you're not an administrator, you're in the classroom, but this is very alarming.
Well, the thing is that I think when they are training teachers and when they're talking to teachers, they need to tell the people that are coming into the profession what they're going to be up against. Because I'll tell you, what she was saying about the pandemic is very true. We had a gap to fill, because the kids are really 2 years behind emotionally, not just academically. So they have to get back used to what it takes to be in the classroom and how to behave. So prepare new teachers coming in to understand what you're dealing with. These kids, they can't focus for long periods of time. And you have to be patient, because where I am now with my students, back in the fall, I was ready to go. I really was. Because I had freshmen, and I've never taught freshmen, and they were really seventh graders. But now, totally different story. My days are it's more peaceful. They understand. They've gotten used to me. I've gotten used to them. So I would say one of the key factors, patience.
Gotcha.
It takes time, and you can't jump ship, because if you jump ship, you never see where these kids can go. But
Gotcha.
it's night and day where my classroom is right now.
Any
but
final?
We're at the end of the school year now, but it took that whole year to get them where they needed to be.
Any final recommendations to the parents in helping in this process with their children?
My recommendation would be to definitely emphasize the importance of education, because a lot of our kids these days, they don't think education means anything. So if they hear from home with their parents or an aunt or an uncle or older sibling the importance of education, even if they don't plan to go to college, it is so important that they understand that education isn't just what you're doing in school and getting to college. It's teaching you a lot of things that you will use later in life. So if parents can support that and let kids know that, hey, take school seriously. It's not a joke. Don't go in there playing video games. You need to be in there trying to learn something. That would be very helpful. And just being readily available if we call. We shouldn't have to go through 5 or 6 different numbers to get a hold of somebody if there's an issue. There should be someone that's always going to answer that phone if there's a problem with their child.
Thank you so much, Ms. Chastity.
Thank you.
All right, and we'll look forward to hopefully hearing from you soon. And we appreciate everything that you're sharing with the audience, and we know they need it.
So Tom, we maybe will squeeze in one more quick call.
Okay. All righty. Thank you.
But that'll be quick. Tell them to make their comment. And
okay, I know we did have one other caller who was trying to call in earlier. Hopefully she'll call back very soon, and then we'll close out the show, Jimmy. This has been an awesome show, and man, I am fired up.
Call-in guests has been great. Yes,
absolutely, and this is the type of feedback that we need from our community. I mean, I see us as a channel in order to help enlighten our listeners and hopefully provide solutions to the issues that they are dealing with. And that is what this show is about, Jimmy. And as you said earlier, this is not to entertain, this is inform. Okay, it looks like we may have one caller here. Good evening and welcome to Black Men Speak. Who are you, where are you from, and what are your thoughts this evening?
Hi, I'm your cousin Elisa at Grade 12.
Hey, what's going on?
I follow the show. I love it. I'm an attorney, but I have a lot of friends in education. Some may have been on, some not.
Okay.
But I think the problem that I've heard from my friends is, like a lot of teachers have said, the burnout, the unsupportive parents, and I think last week we were talking about it starts at home.
Yes.
I don't have kids yet, but just knowing my friends that are heavily in education, just not being supported, and then the parents, like when you have a problem, seems like you call home and it's no accountability, like the things we've been seeing in the South suburbs with kids fighting at school. It's just really disappointing from someone like me that grew up in the Cedar Hill, Duncanville, DeSoto area to see our schools ran down now. And like the last teacher said, you should be on speed there. I know my mom and dad, if you had a problem at school, it was addressed when you got home.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that's the problem, and like I don't get why sometimes it's us, we come out to the suburbs or to areas and then the system goes down. So that's really been a disappointment to see, how this education systems are not what they used to be. And I think, Jimmy, you said people need to run for these positions, and I agree. Back in the day, we had parents on those school boards that held their kids accountable, and they knew what was going on. I've heard from some teachers the school board is just out of touch. They have no idea.
They're out of touch.
They are
out of touch. Yes.
So I think the core argument I'm making is it starts at home. Let's support our teachers, and then the pay is just ridiculous. I saw ISD pay scale. I won't name it, but I'm just shocked at what teachers make and how hard they work, and they're not supported and they're not paid right, and I wish we could do more.
Let me ask you this: what is it? And I understand you're an attorney; you're not an administrator. But from an attorney's point of view, obviously you have a legal background. What can folks who are concerned citizens who want to support, and maybe this is something you can close out with Jimmy as well, but from an attorney's point of view, what is it that concerned citizens can do in order to lean on folks who have the power to say, pay our teachers, give them the support that they need, ensure that they are able to do their jobs in the classroom? Any thoughts either from you or from your friends who are educators?
Yeah, I mean, it starts with the ballot, like we've talked on some of these, getting people out to vote and, making sure we have representation. I think that, and then showing up to school board meetings, concerned citizens need to raise that up to the school board, to the superintendent, but it really starts at the ballot box for me. If we're not registered to vote, if we're not connected, I always tell people, Google what's going on in your community. Google who's on these ballots. People sit around and say that, but I think it starts with the ballot and making sure the right people are in these positions.
All right, perfect. We appreciate your time, Miss Lisa. We appreciate you calling. We are just about out of time, but we appreciate you calling in. We appreciate your support, and we're going to continue to do what we do.
I appreciate the show. I love it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cousin Elisa.
All right, there we go, Jimmy. We are, I can't believe this show went this fast, but we're now out of time.
Yes, but Cousin Elisa was right. The school boards are out of touch. And Tom, and that's another reason the boards are putting pressure to get rid of older teachers who make a little more money than younger teachers. And it's not like they make that much money to start with. So this is a tragedy for what's going on. It needs to stop. So we need everyday people to get involved and run for those school board seats to turn this around and stop getting career money pushers on the school boards.
And another question, and again, this is a big political year. And I know a lot of folks have a tendency to pay all the attention to who's going to the White House, and they pay very little attention.
Politics is local, yes.
Exactly. Local.
You need to pay attention to who's educating your kids and who has responsibility for educating your kids, because that's more important than who's in the White House.
Local elections do matter, people.
Yes.
That's the bottom line. You have to do your research. You do have to hold folks who do have influence, including folks who are in the pulpit, including your local civic and civil rights organizations, hold them accountable. But do your own research. Understand who you are voting for, what they stand for, and more importantly, what receipts do they have in terms of running for elective office, and what have they done in the community?
True.
All right, Jimmy, we're about out of time, so let's close out. You have a couple of words, and then we will.
I would just say, Tom, next time we cover this topic, I'll be interested for someone to call in and let us know. Felicia talked about, criteria, background, worthiness to teach. I'm just wondering, Tom, if you have a criminal record, can you teach? Because we have tons of black men sitting up in jail. I would love for them to do something with their time. For instance, go back to school, get a degree, get their teacher's certificate, and be allowed to teach and enter the classrooms if the rules can be changed to allow that.
Yeah, Jimmy,
we have a shortage of black men in the prison. They have an abundance of black men. So if we can get some of those black men into the classroom, out of the jails and into the classroom, maybe we can help solve some of the problems that we have from a lack of fathers.
Well, Jimmy, that kind of depends on why they were in prison.
I agree.
We're not trying to get nobody out of prison who has a simple assault and
I understand. But if you're in there for a nonviolent crime, hopefully tax avoidance or some kind of white collar crime, maybe we can take a chance on you. But the prisons have an abundance of black men. The schools have a shortage of black men. Let's see if we can find a way to move some of those from here to over here.
And we have more than enough black men who are not incarcerated, and they can play a very valuable contribution to society as well. But we have enough black men out there, but ultimately, Jimmy, and we've talked about this before, when you understand the metrics and the impact that men have in the household,
Right.
men have in our communities, our churches, our schools, every facet of life. And obviously, we have paid a dear price because of the extraction of Black men from our community, starting with so-called social programs to improve our communities that did nothing but extract Black men from our community.
Yes.
If we look at the war on drugs, which was really a war on Black men, and all these other programs that have separated and created divisiveness, Jimmy, that's what we have to focus on. But that's another conversation, another
That's
show.
another conversation, Tom.
All
And I
right.
would say one last thing, Tom, before we close out.
Yes.
For all you women out there that are taking care of men, the whole pimping, big pimping movement, you- the man they get out and do something. For instance, if they have time to sit home and play video games, they have time to go to school, get a degree, get a teacher's certificate, and go to work in the classroom.
All right, Jimmy, why don't we close this show out with a very brief prayer, and then we'll call it a wrap for this evening. Dear
Yes.
Lord and gracious Father, we come before you this evening, thanking you for blessing us to see another day, thanking you for breathing breath into our lives, Father. We thank you for giving us a platform to share information and insight that we pray will improve our communities, that will provide people with the inspiration to make an investment, to improve their homes, to improve their families, to improve our communities, and to improve this great nation, that it may live up to the foundation that was written in the documents that created this entire community of people that has an impact globally. Father, we ask that you would continue to help keep us focused on your work on earth, that we may do your will, Father. We thank you and we praise you and we magnify your holy name. Amen.
Amen.
All right, Jimmy.